Welcome to This Week in Local, a Locology podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Locology analysts Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Local. I'm your host, Mike Boland, joined by my co-host, Charles Laughlin. Hey, Charlie, how's it going?
Going well, Mike. How are you?
Good. So what are you looking at this week?
Well, this is something I think I sent you on Slack a couple days ago, and it's something I admit I'm spending a lot of time on TikTok just researching, what's going to happen if it's banned, of course. But I came across something. There are certain things that I consume only in clips on Insta, TikTok, Shorts, etc. And one of these things is the All In podcast. No shade on them; they do a great job. But I don't really. It's not on my podcast rack. It's just something I see clips of here and there, and they're
Highlight
always
reel.
yeah, it's a highlight reel thing, and they're always pretty interesting. And one I stumbled upon the other day, then again I shared with you, was mostly Jason Calacanis riffing on something that touches on a bunch of different things we've been talking about. And what he essentially, so I'll try to boil, a couple minutes down to a couple seconds. But essentially what he's saying is that early stage startups are doing things differently now. And it's not just about AI, but AI is part of it. It's a combination of a few trends that we've kind of, between you and I have been, uh, between you and me, have been seeing over the past little while. One of which, of course, is AI automation. Automate as much as you can to reduce the necessary headcount. The other is global outsourcing. Basically, instead of having a bunch of W-2 engineers, either remote, hybrid, in the office in the States, have them be in Egypt or Philippines or wherever the heck, and they're purely on a hourly contractual basis. No, no withholding, no benefits, nothing, just pure outlay of money. And given exchange rates in most of the markets where this talent exists, it's very affordable and it's abundant. And there are platforms emerging that manage this for you. Basically, you go to this platform X and say, I want a developer who's proficient in these languages or whatever, and you get them and you give them a project. They do the project. The payments happens through that platform, etc. Calacanis is saying this is the new way to run a startup. And it's a combination of AI, global outsourcing, and the other piece that he noted was very few founding employers getting equity. Okay. Yeah. So it is this convergence of these trends. And there was pushback from some of the others on this clip of the other hosts on the pod. We'll go through all their names, but which is sort of saying, oh, that's kind of the end of what made Silicon Valley great, that you could be the graffiti artist, David Cho, the graffiti artist at Facebook, who made $200 million with Facebook stock in order to paint a few murals at the early offices for Facebook, which did happen. And that doesn't happen anymore. I think that's been true for a while. And but even like employee number 10, 11, 12 isn't getting options. Maybe it's just the founding team. So there's just kind of a new ethos of startup formation that combines automation, outsourcing, and just a tougher line on who gets equity. It's not kind of this, oh, you could be just by being employee number 8, who's the office manager, could get incredibly wealthy and retire at 35 with no coding skills, And it kind of touched on a bunch of things. We've talked about all of these things to some degree or another. How AI is impacting VC and, the billion-dollar unicorn or excuse me, the AI single person unicorn, which we talked about at one point. All these things are kind of converging. And then Calacanis said that basically startups are being organized in a much different way now, much leaner, much more hard nosed, I would say. And it's just, given that I've written about a couple of big raises in our space over the last few weeks, kind of makes me wonder how many big raises we're going to be writing about going forward if this is the way seed stage companies are being formed. I just thought it was just super interesting. Jason Calacanis is a guy I kind of think probably knows what he's talking about on this topic. He may be wrong, but I listen to him when he talks about things like this. So anyway, Mike, I don't know if that strikes you in any certain way.
Yeah, a little bit. So, this is, it's a function of its time. The technology is there to run companies leaner. And these guys sort of like, slamming it just had a certain element of like, back in my day,
Yeah.
the chef at Google was a millionaire, and it's like that's not a justification for what one way something should be or not. I was actually surprised that a lot of them took that
Well,
stance
there
because
was a pushback from one of the
yeah, I
hosts on that specific point. Yeah.
yeah. So
And you're right.
I
You're right. Yeah.
I was surprised because these guys are capitalist at hearts and they're tech
Yeah.
realists, and they know that the way to, and they're also they're all investors. They know that
Yeah.
the companies they're going to invest in, it's a positive signal if they have a lean balance sheet because they're utilizing AIs for headcount. So I think it was a little bit of like nostalgia of back in my day, when I was starting out at Google
That's
in my
kind of how it
20s.
struck me too. Yeah.
So,
That's kind of how. Yeah.
and it was a little bit of like altruism too, like just sort of
Hmm.
some virtue signaling, like sticking up
Yeah.
for the little guy getting the options. And I
Yeah.
think it was just,
Yeah.
it struck me as not very genuine, especially because I know these guys. And actually, I respect
And
these guys.
they're killers. Yeah. We
I,
know
I
that. Yeah.
respect their business acumen. That's
Yeah.
why I was
Yeah.
surprised to see them trying to be like, um,
Well,
so it
yeah,
just
that
struck me as
was
like fake altruism.
Calcanis was basically. I think the sense I got from Calcanis was he was saying, "This is the way it is, and I'm here for it." He didn't say that, but I kind of felt that from him. And Chamath was sort of off to the side, not disagreeing. I think David
Yeah. And
Sachs
who's
is
the
the
other
other
guy?
guy.
David Sachs. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one who chimed in saying, "Oh, it's the end of the golden era of startups in Silicon Valley." I think that if that's how he thinks of the golden era of startups, that ended a long time ago. The new era is super super lean. I mean, hyper lean, just crazy lean.
Yeah.
And that's just the world now.
That's the
That's
world
how I.
now, and we accept that,
Yeah,
and I'm surprised that they were not doing that. So,
yeah, yeah.
but then again, I only saw like you mentioned it was a clip. Like in fairness to them, the
Yeah.
full context could probably be
I
gained.
probably should go. As I said at the beginning, I consume their content this way.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it
maybe
better
they
be
did address.
self-contained.
Maybe they
If
did
it
address
isn't
this point. Yeah,
if it's not a self-contained clip, then I'm doing it a disservice. In fairness, to your
yeah,
point, but I kind of take it that way, and it felt self-contained in the sense that a single point was made and rebutted within that. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, again, we've talked about AI making seed rounds less necessary. For example, we've talked about will we see that one-person unicorn? I think that there's been some debunking of that notion, but not only in the sort of the more literal sense of the single person unicorn. I think when we had David Shim at L24, I asked him about this directly. He kind of rolled his eyes at me on stage,
yeah,
but he said, okay, even if it is worth $1 billion, no one's going to pay that one person $1 billion for that,
yeah.
startup. So that's kind of BS.
An
In and of
acqui-hire is off the table, especially at $1
pretty
billion.
much.
You're
Yeah,
basically
there'll be
buying
a
one
huge
person for $1
discount
billion.
on that,
Yeah,
So even if the valuation is $1 billion, no one's going to get a check. No one gets a check for $1 billion, but you know what I mean. No one's
yeah,
getting a check for $1 billion. So it's almost inherently kind of a garbage notion. That's
hmm
kind of what he said. But he also didn't deny that the technology kind of enables that kind of thinking. And I think this just reflected it's a different world. You know.
hmm
So anyway, okay, Mike. I think we could probably. That was a quick one. We can probably wrap it up. And why don't you read us out?
Sure. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been This Week in Local. Stay tuned every week for more episodes. You can find the show on all major podcast networks and find out more at locology.com. So please subscribe, like, and comment. Your engagement helps others find us. And if you're interested in being a guest or sponsor, you can email us at podcast@locology.com. So I'm Mike Boland with Charles Laughlin. Our producer is Dara Sweat. So thanks for listening and see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Locology's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.